Cool.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Say.
Welcome back. Yes, I've got my espresso here. Actually, this cup courtesy of Hobby.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
The nice little Secret Santa.
nice little Secret Santa. That was nice. We really
It was
did
good.
go kind of all out Christmas wise on that last tour.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of nice because, like, when you're, the whole thing was like when you're on the road, you forget, like, real life is happening outside. And what was the last date of the tour was like December. I think the last show was like December 16th or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
then you go home, decompress on the 17th. And then like a week later, it's Christmas. And you're like, I forgot it was Christmas season.
yeah. It kind
So
of
it was
hits
kind of
you.
nice to like do those Christmassy things and kind of get back home and be like, yeah, I'm ready for this.
Yeah, I think, and for those who don't know what we're talking about, this is the Glorious Sons tour that we did in November and December of 2023. Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I
Years.
know.
Yeah. 2023. And yeah, I felt the same way. I feel like anytime we tour around that time of year, it's you come home and like the holiday season just hits you like a truck.
Yeah,
You
you're
got
just not
to
ready
like it's
for it.
wow, I got to shop and I have to like be in Christmas mode. So it's kind of nice, doing that throughout the entirety of November basically, and then into December. Like the bus was
Yeah,
all Christmassy and cozy and stuff.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was so nice. Like I loved coming back to that every night.
Yes,
You
yes.
know,
It was
that was
awesome
good.
with the dimmer switch lighting. That's so key.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually a good bus. Like
Yeah,
one of the better
that was the
ones.
best one. That was the best one, the best North American one.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I would have to agree because I remember like the one and like yeah, this is so fucking cliche diva complaining about buses. But like it's funny because like the one for the Des Rocks tour, like it was funny how much that one was like just not really a
Man,
nightmare, but
I don't
like
really think that was diva.
yeah, well, yeah, I know it was bad. No, it was
It was
bad.
really bad, man. I don't
But
think
like
anyone would be comfortable in that.
no, no, nobody would be comfortable. Especially that. Where were you? Do you remember where you were in that
I
bus? Like
was
what?
I was the back passenger side middle bunk.
Okay, so you were right underneath me.
You were top?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
actually, I was. Yes, I was top on the right, and then I switched to the left. I remember I ended up on the top left, so I was like kind of across the hall
That's what I
from you.
thought. Yeah, yeah.
But man, I don't know if you ever woke up to the smell, the puttanesca smell.
100% I did.
Oh my god!
That's specifically what I'm thinking is like, man, that's not diva. That's like a legitimate fucking health concern.
Yeah, because like
Like,
I'm not gonna like sleep away from so behind us. The way the bus layout was is you walk onto the front of the bus. There's the huge lounge, just like any other bus, and then you go into bunk alley. There's the first row of bunks, and then the second row of bunks, stacked three high on either side. We were in the second row of bunks, towards the
yeah, like
back
the
of the bus.
back. Yeah.
And then after bunk alley, there's a washroom area, which on the right there's a shower, and on the left there's like a little sort of powder room-ish kind of thing. And then there's the back lounge. So the shower drain would emit this like salty, briny, sewagey smell that
Yeah.
was like mixed with
Suji
like
was maybe the top note.
yeah, the top note, like urine.
Salty briny came after.
Yeah, yeah, that was because of the urine. And
Oh,
oh my god, man, it was
God. And then, yeah, in the middle of the night, because
so
I
because we
thought
were
that,
you sleep away from the front of the bus. You're not going to sleep with your head towards the front because if he hits the brakes hard, you break your neck. But man, oh my god, yeah, waking
yeah.
up to
And
that.
I do remember like it, the smell waking me up.
Isn't that
Not waking
amazing?
up to the smell waking me up.
Yeah, that's and like that is kind of crazy when you think about this. I can't even remember being woken up by a smell.
Yeah. Just being like, oh, what is that? And
Yeah, usually it's like, there's light on your eyes or it's a loud noise or somebody
yeah,
touches you.
yeah.
But like a smell has to be
Ugh,
strong
yeah. It
for
has to be
your body
strong
to
and
be
like,
like alarm, like get up, wake up.
Alert,
Wake up.
alert. Danger. Danger imminent. Oh,
And I
it's
think it's
gross,
because,
man. It's
like,
gross.
you
It's
know, when it
fucking
smells
sewage.
so sharp, it like almost like hurts you because it's acidic.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh man, that is
it was
gross.
sharp. It was a sharp, gross smell. It was 11 people's piss for days, days, days.
I gotta
Oh,
ask, like,
gross.
Tully and Danny if they remember that, because
Yeah.
that was
We gotta once we get some more episodes going on, we gotta have them on the pod.
yeah, that would actually be really great.
Yeah, it'd be great to do a little
If
reconnect.
if we do start to have guests, then yeah, that they would be awesome. Like, I mean, all three of them would be great.
Yeah, Doc. Wow.
Um,
Doc is so interesting because he's just such a good tech.
Man, let's talk about him for a second,
Yeah.
because he's kind of unlike anybody I've ever seen as part of like a crew slash band. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
he is just like a engineer who is also like artistic and part of the band. Like,
Yeah.
it's such an amazing double play to have.
100%.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like what's the term? Like was it not a switch hitter? Would it be a switch hitter?
Kinda because you can hit it. No,
Oh
it
no,
would
he's like a pitcher who can like hit home
exactly.
runs.
Exactly.
That's what it
Yes.
would be like.
He's like a Shohei Otani kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh my
Like
God. If he heard Dog, if you ever hear this podcast, you're being compared to Shohei Ohtani,
he's the Shohei Otani of the
highest paid
music
athlete.
industry.
I
But he
mean, in
is,
our
man. He
eyes,
is.
yes, yes.
He is. Because it's like funny because like any like tech, if they got like stuck on a problem with a guitar or an amp or something, it was like you would ask Doc and Doc would fix it.
Which
Or
is
like I remember
so,
there was one time there was something going on with the bus and Doc fixed it. Like it's not
yeah,
even it's crazy.
that's right. It was he just has that sort of like naturally given skill of like being able to like work mechanics and
Yeah. He just understands the system and like how everything works together. And that's honestly something that I don't get
no,
very easily.
no, I don't
You
think my
know?
mind works that way either. Like,
Yeah.
if you can sit there, obviously, like both of us can watch a YouTube video and figure out how to do something,
Hmm.
basic, like fix a toilet. But like he's like hot wiring some of Dez's guitars,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
for
that's
like,
right. He like custom did shit on
yeah, he
the yeah.
did, he did this thing on Dez's guitar where it was like, a button on his guitar, like body, that he could press and like a red light would turn on and that would like boost his guitar signal.
That's so
So like when he wants to
sick.
take like a lead part even more, he just hits the boost on his guitar instead of hitting a pedal. And like
Right, because it's
somehow it
right
would
there.
trip the pickups to like kind of go like haywire.
Wow.
So, and then like Doc figured that out.
That's so sick.
And that's what they call him, Doc. That's even
That's
cooler.
right. That's
Yeah.
why his name is. I forgot
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's his personality. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shohei
Oh,
Ohtani
that's awesome.
is our nickname for him though.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
But yeah.
Well, yeah. So you wanted to I think this is a good topic actually. Is people always asking us, what are your influences? And for a long time I hated it. And then you kind of helped me realize like there's a point to asking that question.
Yeah, I can understand why people would ask it. Although I
Yeah,
don't quite understand like the desire of the answer.
that's the thing that kind of bugged me. And so basically anytime anyone would ask us like, what are your influences? Or who are your influences? Like who, I don't know. Just yeah, that question. Like we would do it all the time in a Q&A or radio interview or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, tell us who your influences are. It's like, even if I tell you what has now changed about my music,
Mhm.
and now I kind of understand where it's like the influences thing could work when you're trying to introduce someone else to your music and you're like, you'll like these guys because they're kind of like these bands who you also like. And so that just is a little bit of a selling point. But
Yeah.
that's why I was always confused. Like, why are my deep fans asking me? Like, you know what my music sounds like, and it's
Yeah.
almost like I think you should maybe draw those inferences. That might be a little more interesting.
And we have always found it interesting when people, because you
Yeah,
get the standard ones for us where it's like, oh, you sound like Royal Blood, you sound like Black Keys, and then somebody tosses out something like, oh, you remind me so much of Incubus, and you're like, whoa,
yeah. You're like, wow, what?
where'd you get
Explain
that?
that to me.
And
Yeah,
it becomes so interesting when
yeah,
they make the connection, rather than like us being like, who do we think we sound like? I don't
yeah.
know.
Exactly, exactly. So I've always liked that. Um, but kind of one thing to make that question more interesting, because we get it all the time and we will continue to get it. I started kind of thinking, like, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of movies and TV shows and stuff that we're actually influenced by, even more than some music that we are also influenced by. Um, and so, yeah, kind of like going into that, and I don't think people understand it right away. I think you and I understand it very clearly, and so it makes a lot of sense to us. But when we say that to a lot of people, they're like, "Are they fucking with me?" Or like, "What? What is he saying? Like, what's going on
Hmm.
here?" So, um, yeah, like, what do you think? What are some of those
Well, I think
specific
the
instances?
one that we always go to is Inception,
Yeah.
and I know we've kind of just said that over the years, like, oh, it like we you say the thing that you normally say, where it's like actually some movies influence us more, and then we say like Inception, and then I try to think of like why, and I'm trying to think of when we saw that movie. We were, I don't know, what was that like? We were probably in
It would have been
university
like
at the
before Blue
time.
Stones. Yeah, maybe
Like
just before
2010,
we started doing
actually.
stuff with the
Let me
Blue Stones.
see.
Or maybe like right as we were starting.
Just to get into, yeah, 2010. It's a 2010 film, so
Okay.
yeah, that would have
It would have
been
been like right around the time
right
that we were
as.
just starting to write music.
And I just wonder why that movie struck us so much, because I do remember like seeing the movie and coming back and like hanging out and talking about it.
Yeah, we were like talking about the like style of it and
The
stuff, the
style, it
aesthetics.
was like so, yeah, because it was so like style forward. And I think at that time, oh man, honestly, like part of it was the fact that everybody was so well dressed in like suits,
Hmm.
and they were doing these like unbelievably cool, like psychedelic action fused things, but also like it wasn't superficial. Like there was like a deeper meaning behind everything that they were doing.
Right.
It
Yeah.
wasn't just like
It
the
wasn't cheesy.
Expendables. It wasn't cheesy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Right.
like, look at this
The
crazy
Expendables.
dreamscape these guys are like running through, and how like crazy and trippy it is, and I feel like a lot of that almost built the early groundwork for what like Black Holes was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And definitely, I think stylistically, we drew a lot from that movie, like with the
Yeah.
early on wearing the suits, because it was like this sort of cleaned up, tight, put together look against the backdrop of like chaos and rock and, loud music and noise and like just action happening around you. And I think like that's probably what drew us to Inception.
Totally. Yeah. And I think the yeah, like it's just kind of how I'm kind of like explaining it to people is like I think a lot of the time people listen to music at different, like the music that you're into at a given point or a given moment, in even just in a day,
Hmm.
is you're trying to draw some kind of like inspiration and some kind of feeling. And that's why like maybe you like listening to like Leonard Cohen in the evening if you're reading, but you don't like listening to Leonard Cohen before you go to the gym. It's the feeling that we got from watching that movie and then like going home and having to like talk about it. It's we're trying to bring that feeling into the music. And that's why that movie is maybe a bigger influence than say like Jimi Hendrix is on us.
Yep.
Even though we might like take a lot of like techniques and again feelings from some stuff that Hendrix has done. But um that's kind of where that connection for me makes sense, is like our music is a lot like Inception because we try to make you feel the same way when you listen to our music as when you watch the movie,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I
um
think that's a good way to connect it for people who ask.
Yeah.
is what you
Yeah.
just said.
Exactly. And I mean, obviously different songs are different vibes, and then based on that, different movies too. So I think like another one that has always been big for us is like the George Clooney Ocean series,
Yeah,
Ocean's
100%.
11, obviously.
Ocean, yeah,
Just that
yeah,
same thing, like, and I think a lot of it early on, you're right, was like the style and like the suits and whatnot. And yeah, we used to wear that. For anyone that this is a surprise for, we used to wear suits for years when we played, but like not just like a black suit with a white shirt and a black tie. Like I would wear like pinstripe navy three-piece suit with a blue gingham shirt
yes,
and a knit tie and a tie bar.
yes,
And we would play like our, hard rock music. And that,
yeah.
again, that's what you're saying is like kind of the contrast. And I thought that was cool too.
Well, it
Um,
was super cool because then we got picked up by like its style blogs.
yeah, that's
Like,
right.
what was that one guy? Remember the one guy from Boise?
Dappered,
Dappered. That's what it was.
dappered.com.
Dappered.
Yeah.
And he sort of fell in love with like the early music.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, like these guys are wearing suits and playing rock. And like it kind of was like, sort of affirming like the whole style approach that we were taking at the time,
Right.
even though it wasn't
Exactly.
functional at all. It was at
Yeah.
least being like, yeah, like you guys you're making a wave of some sort with your branding right now,
Right. Right.
and people would remember us at the shows where it's like, you were the guys wearing the suits, like
Exactly.
how could I
Exactly. Yeah.
forget that blend of music and image put together,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know,
So it did work for us early days.
it did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it did work.
Maybe worth revisiting at some point, but
Would be
yeah.
cool. I mean, I feel the way I would see it is like we would do some kind of like VIP event show or something where like for the diehard fans who knew us, we'd
Right.
wear like the
Yeah.
suits for that show or something like that.
Yeah. That'd be a cool throwback, actually. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I
But
think that's what helps you soak in so much of the music is like the accompanying visual, or helps you soak in so much of the visuals, the accompanying music.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, so yeah, the Oceans vibe, like I would say like the Oceans movies, like kind of like an LA Afterlife feel,
Yeah.
like those kind of songs where they're a little, it's a little like there's more levity, it's a little more fun.
Well, that
Um,
was a big part of Oceans was definitely like the style, like just like this sort of undeniable coolness of anybody in that film.
yeah,
And the music, man, was so like David Holmes.
yeah, yeah,
I think it's David Holmes, but like it's such a cool, like that's the sort of Medeski, Martin, and Wood style that like we loved at the time.
100%,
You know,
100%, just like effortlessly cool. And
and like when I
yeah,
think about that must have been a pretty pivotal year for us when I think about 2010,
yeah, that's a good point.
because like it's obviously right when we started to, I had gotten to a point where I felt comfortable enough to like write music and show it to you.
Hmm.
But not only that, there's just so much like art that we were soaking in that year, because like just while you were talking, I whipped up a list of like 2010 albums that were released.
Okay, yeah,
Um, and like Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was released that year, which there's a lot of songs off that album.
right, yeah,
I remember even doing like some covers of that songs and recording them and like showing you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that was a big one. I think The Roots released an album that I listened to a lot, but like there's just, and then that's when also you showed me like a lot of the earlier Black Keys stuff.
right,
That's when you showed me a lot of Medeski, Martin, and Wood was in that year as well.
yeah,
So just
yeah,
like a lot of intake in 2010,
yeah, yeah. A
of like
lot of
visual and
culture.
music. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
culture like in that year.
yeah.
So I think all of that sort of spurred on.
It's kind of funny to think that that's 14 years ago.
Yes,
But
that's crazy.
that's crazy. It reminds me, there's this kind of like theory. It's obviously not like there's nothing scientific about it necessarily, but this theory that like every 7 years, is like there's like a major shift in someone's life, and like you can look at it like you have individual like personalities or lives in like 7-year cycles kind of thing.
Okay.
And so it'd be funny because 2010 is kind of when we started doing this.
Hmm.
2017 is when we kind of like started doing it, like working with our management and like with a booking
Yeah.
agent and a record label and all that stuff. So that's 7 years later. And now this is 7 years after that.
It's
And so it's kind of like a
2024.
new, like
Oh
this is like
shit.
the new, a new age kind of
I don't
thing.
know whether or not to be scared or excited.
Yeah, I know. It's probably a little bit of both is good. But
That's funny. That has
yeah,
been pretty much right on schedule.
yeah, yeah. Crazy. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a
Yeah,
lot of
the Oceans one ones were big. I'm trying to think of I mean, just like generally Christopher Nolan stuff is usually pretty cool for that. He's got a cool striking style that also
I'm gonna look
has
at
like the content has like a lot of like gravity behind it.
I'm gonna see if there's any other major ones released in 2010 that would have like we would have, let's say, gone to see. Yeah, I mean it was mainly, I think Inception was the biggest one of that year that
Yeah.
that really influenced us. But yeah, there's a lot of like that obviously caused, you know, like you said, the oceans, diving into the oceans movies. I want to say like I don't know. I feel like we were also watching Breaking Bad. Wouldn't Breaking Bad have been around
Yeah,
that
I
time?
think so. I think so.
So
Maybe a little later, but
right. But then that also had the amazing thing about Breaking Bad. It was a little bit later, actually. It was, I think, maybe 2 or 3 years after that we really soaked in Breaking Bad. But I just loved how they would select the music that goes into that show.
yeah, yeah. The syncs were really good.
The syncs were awesome, and they were always just so tasteful and like right on time,
Yeah.
and it really helped the scene.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and it's like they selected the perfect band and the perfect song and they put it in the perfect
Yeah.
scene. Like
Yeah.
what's that band? Is it TV on the Radio?
Yep.
So oh man, there was this amazing scene of like, I think it was Walt walking out of a department store or like a Walmart or something like that, and he has like a fight with a guy about a cart, maybe. I don't know if I'm
Okay. I kind of
misremembering
remember
this.
this. Yeah.
um Yeah, and he has like this little argument, and it's like, because you know how Walt in that show was kind of like a pushover, and people would steamroll him, and he was like this weak sort of chemistry teacher. But then like he starts to become Heisenberg,
Yeah.
and like his attitude shifts, and that was like one of the scenes that was showing that and portraying that, and like he just like basically chews this guy out, like, who the fuck are you?
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
like this TV on the radio song starts playing. Oh, I can't remember what it's called. But it was so perfectly placed, and it just was so badass, and it just like that left a lasting impression on me so much that I remember it now. Yeah, it was DLZ.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The song's
I
called
think
DLZ.
I think it's really cool because I could be completely wrong about this. They could just have an amazing sync person on that show. But what I think is more likely is the creator, what's his name?
Oh,
Fuck.
I'm trying not to look it up because I just want
God,
to
I
see if
know
you can
exactly
figure
what he
it out.
looks like. I know
Yeah, the
exactly what he
glasses, the
looks like, the
mustache. Yeah,
goatee and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
Um,
Vincent.
yes, Vince Gilligan.
Vince Gilligan. Okay, Vince
I
Gilligan.
think I think he is just like he listens to a lot of different kinds of music, and he'll hear a song and he'll think like he's kind of like a visionary. He can see the scene that this song goes with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when they're writing out the script, he's like, I know I have the song for this because I've already thought about it and I've already like banked it. You know what I mean?
Got it.
When it fits that well, I think it's more that than it is like a sync person who's like, oh, I have a great song for this. It just seems
Yeah,
it's like so well connected and it's
you're
so
right.
like, yeah, it's so when it's that perfect, it seems like it has to come from, the director or the producer, whoever.
I
But
mean, if that's the case, then he has like just an awesome taste in music.
yeah, Yeah.
Like
The
he
one that was really good in Better Call Saul was the Bad Bad Not Good
searching the
when he's
car.
taking apart the car. Oh my god.
That is just insane.
So
This is what I
sick.
mean. Like just amazing choices, and it's got to be what you're saying.
Yeah.
Or
It's just too
you're.
perfect.
I wonder if it is. First of all, if it is a sync person, then they're like some of the best at their
Yeah,
job.
yeah, yeah.
You
Best
know.
at their job.
But also, if
Yeah.
it's Vince Gilligan, then yeah, that's quite a visionary thing to do because it is really some awesome music placement. Like,
And I even remember like cuz watching that episode, like I obviously knew the song, and then I was on Reddit after the show. Like I was on like the Better Call Saul subreddit, and so many of the comments were like, "What was the song when he was taking the car apart?" Because they were like, "That was so sick." Yeah,
because it does almost sound like it's score writing, you know?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's almost like somebody who didn't know that song would be like, "Oh, this is just a cool score that they whipped up." But like, no, that's bad, bad, not good. And like
yeah,
a
man.
lot of their shit in that era was like that.
Yeah. Oh,
You know, it was
so
just
sick.
dark jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Dark jazz.
really insidious jazz.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean that's a really good way to put it.
that was that, and then like they had the OC's placement for when
That's right.
I can't remember what that character's name was,
Yeah. Fuck.
like the Hefe guy,
Yes. 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 Yes.
the Pollos
God.
Hermanos guy, yeah, whatever that guy, and he's like I don't want to spoil the show for anybody who's watching, but
I
like a
mean, it's a pretty old
very
show now.
that's true, yeah. So like when he poisons everybody and he's
Oh yeah,
walking
that's
through, and that
right.
OC song, like I
Yeah.
definitely downloaded that
Yeah. Yeah.
for
That's right.
sure.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
actually the theme song for I think Better Call
Better Call Saul.
Saul and maybe not Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul was that band Little Barry. I think
That's
they're
right.
called Little Barry, and they're an awesome band.
Yeah. Very
Really,
cool.
really cool band, and very sort of like from that era of like just sort of loose 3-piece bluesy, jazzy rock band. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, great. Again, like these are the things that sort of influenced us. I
Yeah.
think when you have like an impactful show that is accompanied with really good music and that sort of builds who we are as artists. It's not like I mean there are albums which like we can get into. There's definitely albums that influenced us as well. Where
Of
I remember
course.
sitting and being like, wow, this music on its own is just amazing.
Yeah.
There's live shows that influenced us. But yeah, it almost seems like just sort of really not the whole picture when somebody sits on a show and asks us who are your biggest influences? It's like,
And
man,
they're
that,
looking for like music. Yeah.
and they're looking for
Specifically.
like Led Zeppelin,
Right. Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know,
Yeah.
or like I know some artists will dive into like specific, like Muddy Waters or something. And honestly, like I used to say that I think because I felt an obligation as being like a blues guitarist to be like, well, I need to reference these greats. At the end of the day,
Right. To
man, I
kind of like
don't
be in the
really
scene.
think so. Like I like the music, but like, did it really like invoke something inside of me? No,
Right. Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that's bad. It's just
No, it's just what it is.
that our path was this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe like
For
the
sure.
old guard of musicians is like, you didn't draw your influence from the greats who put you here. Fuck off. Honestly, fuck off.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I know. It's like, again, I think there's kind of three levels of that kind of influence. Like one is like something as like close as like our music sounds like this, like I don't even know how to describe this with like a good example, but it's like
Mm,
we built a song that is similar to the structure of these songs and the tone of these songs, like that kind of like level of depth, I think.
yeah.
Um, then I think another level deep is like we're in the same kind of genre, or like we're exploring the same themes as this kind of. So like the first level is very technical. It's very like our sound waves sound like their sound waves,
Hmm.
right? And then the next level is like we're kind of in the same arena, and we're talking about the same things, singing about the same things, and the feeling is kind of similar.
Okay.
Um, and then that third level is where it's all about the emotion and the feeling that this piece makes you feel, and this piece makes you feel, and that's where I think we are drawing those connections to the movies. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
not a sound thing, it's not an arena thing. It's like it's more it's more about the emotion that's being invoked, and that's why I think you and I can say like Jay-Z is a big influence on us, or J. Cole is a big influence on us, and that makes a ton of sense to me, because there is a little bit of like the feel of like the rhythm of the music, but a lot of the times it's the emotion.
Yeah.
It's the swagger kind of vibe
The
that
attitude.
you listen. You
Yeah.
can put them in one playlist. You can put a J. Cole song and you can put a Bluestone song in a playlist if you want to kind of like have your confidence lifted before going into something.
Hmm.
That's why I say that J. Cole is an influence.
Yeah.
Not so much of like his guitar tones are exactly like ours. Like,
Yeah.
no, that's
Yeah.
that's a different kind of influence.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's where I think there's a lot of confusion, is like people might be asking the question, looking for answers on like tier 1 or tier 2, and we're kind of like more interested in tier 3. I think that's just how, because being an artist, that's like what we're more focused on, is like pushing an
Yeah.
emotion, and that's where you get the connection. Someone who isn't really like creating themselves, they're just thinking like this sounds like this, and so they must be influenced. You
Yeah.
know what I
And
mean?
you're right. It is a feeling thing. And it's very much like I remember listening to like Faint by Linkin Park. Do you remember that song from
Yep.
Meteora?
Yep.
So I remember listening to that, and like, although the tones were really, really cool, like it just like when I was that young, it just made me feel a certain way, like whoa, like you kind of dive into this deep pool of like this emotion. And it's not anything like sadness or like, anger. It's just kind of like, whoa, like this is such a cool feeling that these
Yeah.
chords are making me feel. And like the same thing with like Power by Kanye West, and the same thing with 99 Problems. And it's like, this is weird. Like I just feel so cool in this area.
Yeah.
And I think it's that intangible, or that like the indescribable thing that influences you.
Yeah.
And
And at the
you
same
just write music that is like, this is what reminds me of that feeling that I had, and I hope that reminds other people, or that gives other people that same thing.
Exactly. And I think that is why a lot of people will connect with some music and not with others, because
Right. Okay.
the artists are too focused on that first level of like sound and like sound quality and like tone and all that stuff. And it's like you need to go into that deeper, like what is the feeling that you're trying to convey.
Hmm.
Um and at like the opposite side of that is where I think when someone tells us, like if we flip the script on someone and we're like, what do you think our influences are? And they're like, I think you guys sound a lot like Electric Wizard, which is like a stoner like doom band.
Okay.
I'd be like, no, well, no, but I see what you're saying,
Hmm.
because some of our guitar tones are like really heavy and thick. Like think about a song like Let Me Out or Stay With Me. It's
Hmm.
like thick, beefy, stoner, rocky kind of like sounds, but like the vibe that Electric Wizard gives off is like very different than
Right. I gotta
than
see what
what
this
we're
band looks
doing,
like.
right? And like they're sick. I love Electric Wizard,
Electric Wizard. Okay.
but
Is it in the same?
it's
Yeah.
like
Okay. Okay.
it's like very classic, like stoner rock, like doom kind of
A picture
music.
from Slug magazine. What a perfect name for like a
Exactly. So
stoner
now
rock
you
mag.
get it. Yeah, it's like
Slug.
sludgy. It's like
Yeah.
just kind of like,
Oh, English. Okay. Cool.
yeah, no, they're really good.
Awesome. Okay.
But very, very heavy. And so just like not really not the same really not the same vibe. And then the funny thing that I laugh at is like when someone's like, "Yeah, you guys remind me a lot of like Avenged Sevenfold," and I'm like, "You just like both bands, man.
Yeah,
You don't.
yeah,
We have
100%.
nothing in common with them. You just like them, and you like us. That's the that's the common thread."
And yeah, exactly. Like, that's happened a few times too. Where, yeah, when it really completely doesn't make sense, it's very it's very apparent.
It's just like, no, this is you. Or like, yeah, would you guys ever consider touring with them? No,
No,
what?
no,
No.
man. Like, no.
And they would never consider touring with
Tell me
us.
how that would work.
Yeah.
Tell me how that would work. It's like, yeah, for you, it would be really awesome to see like two bands that you really enjoy on.
Holy shit.
Yeah, yeah, for that one person. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely a lot of moments I think I can draw from, and I think that's what it comes down to is like we listen to the bands that we listen to. Like, again, Sam Roberts is another thing where
Yeah.
honestly, it's I think Sam Roberts was just like a right place, right time kind of artist
Yep.
for
For
us,
sure. For sure.
because can't necessarily say musically it influenced us. It's kind of hard to say. Like, I don't think
I
we
think back in
play.
the I think back in the day we wrote more songs like his style.
Maybe you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, obviously, like, huge credit to him, because some of the first shows we've ever seen, first show I've ever seen with Sam Roberts, and then first shows we saw as like a group of friends, and like it just sort of like, made an imprint in our lives as like this awesome experience
Mhm.
as, like, growing up. And then the music, for sure. I think it
I
was
mean, those
kind
records
of,
are still really fucking good.
yeah, man, Chemical
Those first 3
City,
records are
which is
amazing.
like weirdly his underrated one.
I know. It's funny.
It's
That's
so
I think
good.
that's his best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's what at least gave me the nudge of getting into music, was like his music and writing. I was like, oh, like, I want to try writing something. It was kind of like Sam
I didn't
Roberts who
know
gave
that
me,
actually. I
yeah,
don't think I ever knew that.
well, because it was like, again, it was right place, right time. I remember seeing his show, the free show at the Raceway in Windsor,
Right, yeah.
and then like got into his music in Chemical City. Um, Bridge to Nowhere was like one
Right,
of the
yeah.
first songs I played and sung.
Okay.
Um, yeah, actually, wow, whoa, this is like a weird nostalgia. It's funny, you can see it happening in real
I
time.
I watched it. I watched it happen in your eyes. Do
I
I need to
wish
get
we
you
could.
a box of Kleenex?
Holy shit, I'm having a
Oh
moment.
my god. Oh wow.
That was the first song I learned how to play and sing on the guitar. And
Ugh.
then from there, after learning and playing how to sing it, I wanted to record it so that I could be like, oh, let me record this so I can
Right.
listen back to it. And that's when cracked open the old Mac and GarageBand, and I figured out how to do it just from the speakers. And that was it.
Okay.
From there, it
Wow.
was like, I can just record my own thing,
Right. And so
and I
now you're
had
like,
the,
oh, now I might as well just do my own stuff. Yeah.
there
Wow.
you go. And that was it. So, wow.
That's
It's funny
really
that, like,
cool.
you keep those memories sort of covered,
Yeah.
you know,
Until it's time,
until
till
it's
the
time to
right
come out.
context.
But
Yeah.
it was,
Wow.
wow, I can't believe that, Bridge to Nowhere. Yeah, that's definitely what happened.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never knew that. Wow. That's
So, yeah,
amazing.
I mean, huge credit to Sam Roberts. So it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
like, obviously we loved his music, and there's certain techniques that even like Nugent would play.
Right.
Nugent
Yeah.
being Dave Nugent,
Yeah.
not Ted.
Not dead.
Huge disclaimer, not Ted,
Yeah.
Dave.
Wow. Yeah.
I wonder if he gets asked like a lot,
He
like,
must. He
as a
must.
guitarist named Dave Nugent, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
is your grandfather may possibly?
Yeah. Like, what's the relation? No, nothing.
But he would have
Yeah.
really
But
cool leads. Like, remember the leads he would play, like, so uniquely him
yes.
on a lot of songs?
Yes. You just know when he comes out. You
Yes,
know
and
when
like
it's him.
that,
He's so
like,
good.
his playing was very influential, I would say.
Right. Yeah. No, his leads are really very recognizable.
Yeah.
But I think it's
Well, what
like
was that for you? Like, in the same like the same sort of topic for you?
In terms of what, like, what
Like,
got me playing music?
well, yeah, like even drumming.
Oh,
Because I wonder, like, if you listen to something or you saw something, and you're like, I want to try this. Well, I remember it's like the music. Well, go ahead.
so it's kind of like, when I started playing drums, I started playing drums just because of like my music teacher in grade school.
Right.
Like everyone had to pick an instrument, and I got the drums. Like there was like 5 spots for drummers, and we had to like, rock paper scissors for them or something, because there was like 10 or 15 kids who wanted to do it, and I ended up getting it, one of the spots, which is kind of funny to think that like I might not have ever played drums had I not won a fucking rock paper scissors match,
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. You could
when I
have
was
been the
12.
world's like greatest trumpeter.
Wow. No. um but anyway,
Trumpeteer.
um then I started, like, my neighbor owned Riverside Music Shop in Windsor,
Hmm.
and so then I convinced my parents, like, yeah, I'd like to just start drum lessons there. Like, don't have to buy a drum kit or anything. And so I did it for like a year. I played drums without having a drum kit. And I would like live for the, like, we did music like once every 5 days or something, like once a week in school. And I would just live for the like time where I could like get behind the drum kit and like play for everyone, like the stuff that I was learning behind the scenes, like at drum lessons.
Hmm.
And then eventually got a drum kit, so now I could do it at home and all that stuff. And so the rest is kind of history. I
Yeah.
only did lessons for like 1 year, but at that time, what was kind of cool was like Blink 182, and that was like when Enema of the State just came out, and so the pop punk thing was really big. And so that's kind of like what I was listening to, what I was playing. But that's where it's like my musical kind of discovery journey was starting at that time. Cause I feel like, you know, when you're like 11 or younger, you're just really just listening to like what's popular and what
Yeah,
everyone else is listening to. And
that's true.
it's just so much of a like, I just want to fit in. So I just need to listen to what everyone else listens to.
Absolutely, man.
And then
Backstreet
after
Boys.
that is kind of when I like started to like define my own taste, and then realize that that could be part of my personality, and that's like that could help define who I was as a person and the style and all that stuff. So then I started getting into like um Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins and like Metallica and stuff, and that sort of older stuff. In part because I wanted to learn how to play the stuff on drums, and they were really good drummers, and that was like part of the discovery there was like related to learning the instrument.
Hmm.
Um, but again, I think that's kind of like to say that, like, I wouldn't say that like any of those got me into music, or, you know, like there's still like I still have like a kind of like a emotional attachment to that, but like I don't like throw it on ever really. I don't really listen to any of those bands anymore intentionally. Um,
Oh, intentionally.
like I just never I've never throw on a Blink 182 album, or
Yeah,
a Nirvana album or a Metallica. I just don't.
yeah.
Even though
I could
like
see that.
I was listening, hundreds of hours when I was that age. That's what I would listen to.
I
Smashing
wonder
Pumpkins
why
I still
that
listen
that
to, but
happens too. Well, I mean, it was part of just
I
how we listen
so
to music now,
again,
but
I think this is kind of related to like where a lot of people get frustrated when artists change, is you got to realize like it's like two lines on a graph, and there's kind of like an intersection. So it's like this is your musical taste,
yeah.
and this is like the music that the artist is making. And so like earlier here, you aren't going to line up to what they're making, but like when you get into an artist, you're at the intersection of like what you are into at that time is the kind of music that the artist happens to be making.
Oh, I
And then
see.
there's eventually a divergence, and that's where fans get frustrated, because they're
Man,
like,
that's so perfect of like a visual because it is absolutely right.
yeah, because
Absolutely right.
it just happened that the time where I got into your music, we were like perfect.
Yeah.
We were right. You know what I mean? Um, And then over time, we're just kind of like diverging. And I think the fans that are along for like the long ride, just so happens that your lines are really, really close, you know? And that's
Mhm.
why I think like when we, like maybe for me, early Coldplay stuff, that was a perfect time for me to listen to the first three Coldplay records and really, really get into them.
Yeah.
And then they started to change, and I wasn't really into that. They were going more pop, and I was getting more like indie, I guess.
Yes.
Um, and so it just didn't work out. But like that'll still, those three records are still amazing to me. Even like fourth one, Viva La Vida, is still really, really good.
Mhm.
But I'm not convinced that if a new band came out with a record that sounded like X and Y now, I don't know that I would be into it
Right. Because it was
now.
again that time that it happened.
And that's the thing. It's like because you listen to it at that intersection, I think it's locked in forever now. You will always appreciate that because it was such a close thing to you emotionally at one point that I think it'll always sort of carry over.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm not there musically right now. So if a new band kind of made an album that sounded a lot like it, I don't I don't know that I would necessarily like it. Maybe I would,
Yeah.
but probably wouldn't get into it as much as I was into X and Y when that came out.
I understand that for sure.
Yeah.
I think taking what you're saying and sort of applying it to myself. I think AM Arctic Monkeys,
Mm.
that album,
Yeah. I
AM,
I think
yeah,
a lot of people,
because
yeah, you should
before,
expand
like,
on that, but I think a lot of people are going to feel that.
well, if you think of it like this, like
Yeah.
this is where they were early on with their music. I wasn't into that. That's
Right.
where I was, and then they got to AM, which was the intersect point,
Yep.
and I was like, wow, this is like really what I'm into at this time. And then they obviously branched out into like, what's the album now they have? Like, well, there's
Um,
obviously the one about like the Moon Hotel.
do they have another one now?
Well, they released one like maybe 2 years ago or
Oh
3 years
God, I
ago
don't
that
know.
was like it was like they were a lounge band in
Oh yeah,
the
that one.
lobby of the of Hotel on the Moon.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
I think they have another one now. But
Okay, they
again,
have
I
a new one.
wouldn't
Yeah.
like that's it. We lost, where I'm here and
Got
they're
it.
here now. So
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
keep track anymore. But
Yes.
if a
Yes.
band were to release something that sounded like AM now, I would also just kind of be like, that's nice, but that was then,
Yeah. It's not
you know?
exactly what I'm into right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for bands like that, or for bands or for fans where this is occurring, it's so nice to hear that like if Coldplay, for example, were to, come out and say, we're writing an album and it just sounds so much like Rush of Blood to the Head, or like we're really going back to our roots and like playing a lot of songs that sound very, very X and Y. It's like teasing you to like go back to that intersect point,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
And and then maybe if they do end up releasing an album where it sounds like what they used to sound like, you kind of like are chasing the feeling that you had when you first heard those albums in the time that you were in, and it
Yeah.
doesn't quite line up or doesn't quite measure up.
Yeah, like the magic isn't there anymore. I mean, this is like there's
Yeah.
obviously like a lot of parallels to like a lot of relationships here, romantic or friendship or otherwise, like
Yep.
it's kind of same thing. Like you are now a different person and they are also a different band. And so even if they try to bring it back, it's not going to have the same magic. Because again, you might not be into your musical path is at a different point than it was when you liked that album.
Yep.
And so you can, yeah. And that's why I think like you're kind of, as an artist, you can either change and upset the people who expected you to stay on their track of what they listen to. Um, or you can stay the same and eventually people are going to outgrow you anyway. So like you just kind of have to do your own thing and you have to go on that path and like find new people along the way. And I think that that only kind of benefits you as an artist because I would still buy tickets to go see even like say Sam Roberts. Sam Roberts probably has like 7 albums now.
Yeah, it's got to be up there.
I'm more into like the first 3 or 4. I would still go see him because I know he's going to play those songs, and I'm sure I would still enjoy the newer stuff. But like if there's someone who's really connecting with the newer stuff, they'll go for those records. And now
Yeah,
you have 2 people who are like kind of completely different musical tastes both going to your show. And
to
so
the
you're
same
just kind of
show.
like expanding your audience, and it doesn't matter so much that like your old stuff might not align with your new stuff
Hmm.
in the eyes of like you as the artist. Because I think generally people will always hear your music as being your music and
Yes.
having that kind of common tie. But I think that capturing 2 different groups of people isn't really like a bad thing. Like, yeah, as long as you're not making a crazy departure,
Well, I
even
think
then
that's
that's
where it
hard to,
gets tough because
yeah,
even as like us as the artist, it gets really hard if like you're trying to cater to 2 different versions of your own fan.
yeah.
It's like 21 Pilots, for example. I listened to like their newest single, which was sick. And then I listened to something off Blurry Face, like Tearing My Heart. And I'm like, how does this, like, I don't know. Like, that's almost like 2 different bands. And like,
Mm,
when they go to play stuff live, how do they work in the older stuff to appease those people who are at the show? And then the new stuff, which is such a departure
right.
into the same show. And I think that's really hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it is.
Artistically, it's hard to like tie that in. I feel like even with our newest you know LP4 stuff, it's going to be hard to tie in some of like the singles from earlier on. I just feel like it's kind of 2 different vibes.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be. I, yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't think it necessarily has to like flow like one into the next, but I, I don't know. At the same time, you know, a lot of these older artists, I'm just like, I don't know, just I'm kind of like recognizing that like this is from one era and this is from another one. And it doesn't necessarily mean that like, I don't know. I understand they're not from the same album, I guess is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
So
Like when
like
you're
when you
at
when
the
you
show.
switch gears and you go to an older song, I'm like, okay, like I'm done with that now. And now we're on to like this new scene or this new era.
Mhm.
Um in the same show.
And
So
there's some bands that don't. Like I don't feel like the Black Keys really like they could play their entire catalog and it would all sound like the same show.
it all kind of fits. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be such a change of pace.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think for those bands who like really make departures from their own sound, it's tough. And I guess it,
Yeah.
it is good to
Radiohead
look
is
at it.
probably Radiohead's probably
Radiohead,
like
yeah,
that one
holy
is kind
shit,
of
all over
like
the map.
that. Yeah. That is a huge departure,
Yeah,
you
but
know.
then you kind of have like I guess you have a sort of show. Don't some artists play like album like they'll have a show where it's like, oh, we're gonna play the entirety of this album or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's obviously when you get into like the legacy stage.
Legacy and like, or if it's just like a, yeah, which I mean, I guess, yeah, you're a legacy artist if your album is old, but like My Morning Jacket did that. Um, they did 2 nights at Red Rocks, and one was just the entire album. It Still Moves front to back,
Okay, there
and
you
then
go.
a couple more songs, and then like from different albums,
Hmm.
and then the next night they just did songs from every other album,
Hmm.
like just normal show, but nothing from that record.
Wow, they're such a band from like the era of just like you're famous because you're a good band.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? And
yeah,
like that just does
yeah,
not exist anymore.
yeah. I
Like what
know.
what are they, like what they're just My Morning Jacket is My Morning Jacket. It's not like I can't really tie like a specific maybe the album art and stuff, but like there's not like specific image or something to
Yeah, they
them.
didn't have like breakout moments. It's just like
No.
a kind of
And they're just
steady.
such yeah, they're a good band and that's why they are famous because they're good.
Yeah, their music is just good. That's it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, they're not like a, you know, it's not like everyone knows who they are, but they sell a lot of tickets. They have a lot of fans. They have a lot of diehard fans. You know, yeah, it's so funny. But I think that like niche thing, kind of going back to what we were talking about last time is like that's becoming more of the thing, is like the niche artist and owning a niche. And like
Mhm.
there's so many small niche artists that like it's not like it was before, where it's like, how could you not know who this person was, right? Like we have friends who didn't know who like Lana Del Rey is.
Mhm.
But I'm also not surprised by that, because
Yeah.
although she is like in the media more and more now, she like isn't, I don't know, she's just not a household name necessarily in the way that
No.
like in the 70s, anyone at her level of success, everyone knows who that person is.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she
Um,
does own a weird little niche of
y-
pop.
yeah, exactly. And it's just, there's so many of those, like you can have a music career and no one really knows who you are, which I think is cool and interesting.
It is. Yeah. Or
Um,
like sometimes too, I feel like a lot of their popularity is like, oh, Taylor Swift thanks Lana Del Rey for, influence on this song. And then people are like, Lana Del Rey, like, who is that?
yeah,
And
exactly.
then they look
Yeah.
into it, or like she's pictured, clapping at an event. And people are like, who's this random woman?
Right. Yeah. And then,
So
yeah.
it is more of like a personality thing. Personality is huge now, huge.
Yeah. Massive. The
Like,
one thing about the monoculture like era though that I think gets missed is like it was something that like everyone could relate to. And I think there was kind of like there was like a bonding over that. Like,
mhm,
when the Beatles were just everywhere and everyone knew every Beatles song and every Beatles album release was the biggest thing in the world. That was like a uniting thing
mhm.
versus like there's so many now niches of music that I don't necessarily like have that bond with literally everybody in North America. If my favorite band releases an album, I might be hard pressed to find anyone else who cares
Yeah,
except
yeah,
online.
yeah. In your own niche, in your own little
Right.
niche of
And so
people.
that's kind of the one thing that's like, man, like I think movies are still in that just because of the distribution method and the way that it's consumed is like a
Yep.
little, it's harder to make like to have the niche factor that music has now. To have that in
Hmm.
movies is gonna, I think, be really tough. Um, but like it's a like a just imagine, I don't know, just like think of a world where like a movie like Superbad is like a niche thing, and like there's just so many of these movies that are unbelievable, but you'll never get to them because there's too many of them and there's too many niches and people are into too many things. Like it's nice to have like, oh, we've all seen Superbad, of course, and like we can bond over the jokes and the story and whatnot. Like kind of don't have that as much in music anymore.
Yeah, and even if you do, like for like let's say the massive, massive artists, it's
Taylor Swift,
so
Beyonce.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like mundane to talk about. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like talking about the weather.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you like Drake? Yeah, I guess he's good. Like
Right.
it's just you don't really talk about those things because it's not interesting. But like for whatever reason, movies, like have you seen Oppenheimer? And everybody's like,
Right.
oh man, and it's like one of the most popular movies of the past year, and
Yep.
it's not really lame to talk about it.
Right.
It is weird how there's a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
It's come to its natural end.
it's come to the natural conclusion. We've come back to movies.
Back to movies. Wow, nice, nice,
Come
and a
back to movies.
Christopher Nolan
A
movie at that.
Christopher Nolan one. So there we go. Did you like Oppenheimer?
I did. I thought it was long. I don't know if I can complain about movies being long
I liked it. It
anymore.
was long.
It just like I don't know. I feel like the biggest thing I complain about these days is like movies being long, but I don't know if that's just because of that short attention span that's
Mm,
built over
yeah.
time.
Well, they are definitely longer than they used to be, for sure.
Okay, yeah. So it was obviously very long and drawn out, but like well acted. I mean, score was incredible. Visually, it was amazing. Yeah, it was a good movie. It was a really good movie, and I think it deserves like
Yeah.
the hype for
Okay. So
sure.
you thought it was like best picture worthy.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think it's an important story as well,
Yeah.
to tell. Um, so I think it definitely deserves. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did. I saw it kind of recently. And I thought it was okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think what really ruins it for some people, like when the movie was out and circulating in theaters, was everybody was like, "You got to go see this in 30 millimeter IMAX." Like,
Right.
it's not like there might be one part that's really great for that,
Yeah.
but it's the story of a man.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the story of this guy,
Hmm.
and you don't need to watch it in IMAX to soak in the story of this guy.
Right.
So I thought that kind of ruined it for people, because then they were trying to match it to the hype of like, well, I'm about to be blown away visually. I better strap in. But then like it's
Yeah.
just, a lot of conversation.
There were some definitely like really good moments, like when they were about to detonate the bomb for the first time. I was like, my heart was pounding.
Same, same.
Like oh, he's so good at like building those like tension moments.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, generally I thought that was really good. Um the It was tough, like the like Robert Downey Jr. being the kind of villain. I don't know, I just had a hard time grasping onto that. That was like one Christopher Nolan movie where like the timelines thing didn't feel as like instinctual and natural
Mhm.
to me. Um which is obviously like that's kind of his thing. But it was one that was just, it seemed a little more forced. I don't know. I didn't
Okay.
really get it too much, but yeah, I thought it was good. And there was a lot of stuff in there that I didn't know about, so that was cool.
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly. About like the development stage and like how they built that whole city basically for people
yeah,
to come and live, and like academics to just like interact every single day.
yeah,
You know,
and I didn't know that he had like the ties to New Mexico before they did that and stuff. 'Cause they were doing all the tests in the desert and stuff, which obviously is a perfect place for it. But I didn't realize he was like, oh yeah, we should do it in New Mexico, because he like had a kind of emotional tie to that place. But
it's funny that I saw this TikTok recently of like it showed like the contrast between who was in who's the actor in Maestro? Um, oh my god, why can't I think of this guy's name? That's driving me crazy. He's in The Hangover, like one of the three guys in The Hangover. Very famous at Bradley Cooper. Bradley
okay,
Cooper, and it shows
very
this like
famous.
very famous
You're a
actor.
very famous guy.
White. No, he's like the TikToker's like acting his ass off for this Maestro role, and then like they cut to like Cillian Murphy winning all the awards, and like literally he just put in contacts to make his eyes like this crazy color of green, and he's just sitting there like this the whole time, and it's like just different cuts of him doing this, because that is kind of what he did for a majority of the movie.
Right.
What
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy was just like staring, just
Yeah.
staring,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's gonna scoop up all the awards.
Yeah. Uh, I thought he did a good job though. I thought he
Yeah,
did a
he,
good
he
job.
I saw beyond that. I did think he did a really
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right, man.
Let's call it.
Okay.
That's the end of episode 2, I suppose.
Episode 2. All right. See you
Bucks.
later, y'all.